Dylan, welcome to the show. Great to have you. The conversation we're having today is about improving intra-regional trade, that is intra-African trade. We know that the numbers are still not encouraging, but slightly up. This new platform that was launched by African, do you think this is a good way to support improving those trade numbers?
Absolutely. I think any concept that is aimed at promoting trade within the continent is a positive step forward. I mean, the concept of the Buy African is buy African, produce African, and wear African. And I think that is promoting this mindset change of selecting African products ahead of perhaps international products.
And we're seeing pockets of these platforms take place all across the continent, by Kenya, by South African, etc. It kind of feeds into the whole larger concept of supporting African-made products. But what needs to happen on the ground? Because it's certainly the Buy African platform is not a new concept. It feeds into all the other concepts around supporting African trade. What needs to happen on the ground to make this a reality?
So there's the in-country promotion, which you mentioned we are seeing, and that's important. I think that's part of all these different nodes starting to kind of fit together and evolve towards this one big concept of Buy African. But from a more macro level, it's important that we work on our multilateralism, our interregional trade and our continental trade. If we can promote our African products from Kenya to South Africa to Kenya, Ghana to Uganda, etc., and create export-import opportunities with African products, we're going to create not only value-added opportunities downstream, but also upstream. And that is only going to have a positive impact on Africa's economic development.
It certainly makes sense from that perspective and would no doubt boost entrepreneurship as well, which I would say is pivotal for the economy of Africa to grow at large.
Certainly. I think this is going to be has significant opportunity for entrepreneurship. We know about the African dividend and the window of opportunity, but the importance is around creating economic opportunities for that youth base that is now emerging. They say by 2040 we're going to have a larger youth population or working population than China and India. But can we have that population economically active? And that's important. I think this is a great opportunity to perhaps start from the grassroots up and develop entrepreneurs throughout Africa.
From a consumer perspective, what needs to happen to create that shift in buying behavior? Because from a consumer perspective, it's all about the brand, right? Certain products just appeal more to consumers, and it makes sense to import those brands, because what we are talking about is importing less from other continents and buying more from Africa.
Yeah. So we are talking about a mindset change, a paradigm shift in the way that we engage with products and brands. So this historical or legacy of European or Western products having superior quality to local products is going to need to change. And that's going to take time as we are demonstrating to our local consumers that African products are of similar quality.
Consumers will have to be convinced.
Exactly. And that also takes, we've got a role to play as entrepreneurs on the continent, whoever is producing the goods, to produce them at the highest quality.
Sure.
Because they are representing the continent. That's the only way that we're going to really compete with the rest of the world.
I want to come back to developing entrepreneurship growth in Africa. This is really important if we want to improve trade and if we want to spur innovation and get Africans to really, work hard and to compete within the continent itself. What do you make of what is being done to support that growth? If we have to look at South Africa in particular, this is a big business economy.
So I think there is a lot of intent and support from a government level, and that we're seeing that across the continent. How it is manifest is the challenge. So we're talking about a lot of economies. We're talking about the digital economy, for example, and e-commerce. E-commerce in South Africa, as an example, is growing upwards of 20% year on year. On the rest of the continent, on the continent as a whole, we're looking at approximately around 40% year on year. Now, this is obviously of a small base, but what that means through e-commerce is opening up of new market opportunities, and that is opportunities that exist also beyond the continent. So how do we take an African product and sell it to the rest of the world? And I think there's huge opportunity for that. And traditionally, perhaps we weren't thinking in that manner. I've just been at a session in Luxembourg with tech entrepreneurs from around the world. And the capability to think on a larger scale, big thinking, is significant. And I think that's because they are used to having access to a large consumer market. And a market that is not just by, when I say large in terms of number, but in terms of actual purchasing power.
Yeah.
So if we are still developing the purchasing power on the continent, as we talk about this, emerging middle class, yet the middle class is categorized as between $4 to $20 earnings per day. When that starts increasing, and we're going to see that in 10, 15 years' time, then we're going to really see the opportunity to reap the benefits of entrepreneurship on the continent and local production.
Sure.
But we have to gear for that now. We have to start preparing for that now in order to see the results in 15 years, 20 years' time.
Well, certainly a lot of work to be done. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure. Thank you for having me.